New Cardi Kaizoku video. Need to watch.
Cardi Kaizoku.
This video is sponsored by Nen Garden. They've got playmats ranging from One Piece and even non-One Piece. Check out their new exclusive Joker playmats, now available for pre-order in 2 variants, one in full color and one in sleek black and white at nengarden.com. Just in time now that all of you have switched your mains to this guy, use NEN15 for 15% off your first order, plus apply my affiliate code CARDKaizoku for an additional 5% on top of that. That's right, that's 20% off your order. This video is sponsored by gumgum.gg. Man, what deck should I play today? Oh, I know, I'll head over to gumgum.gg for the most up-to-date One Piece deck lists, updated daily with over 1,000 deck lists per set, including both Eastern and Western decks. Whether you're chasing the meta or hunting for rogue strategies, use gumgum.gg. This video is sponsored by Card Market, Europe's largest online marketplace for trading card games. So you're a new player who just got into the game because this premium booster set just came out that has reprints of all the old sets, right? It'll help you jumpstart to your collection, catching up to the rest of us. But now that you've got your product, you've opened your packs, what do the cards do? Which ones are good? What things should you know about each card? Well, yeah, let's go over that in this video. So I have the entire list of Premium Booster 1 here. We're going to go over every single card, so it might take a while to reach the end of the video. But yeah, if you're a new player and you just want a gist of which cards can be used in which decks or if they're good or not, because yeah, there's some junk in this set too, unfortunately. This is the video for you, and then if you're a veteran player who knows these cards already, I guess you could wait to hear my opinion on some of these and argue with me in the comments about it. Something for everyone, I hope. Okay, so let's just jump right into it. So first off, Manga Chopper. If you were lucky enough to pull the Manga God Pack, I guess this is the tailor-made video for you. So Manga Chopper, this Chopper can only be really used in a Zoro deck at the moment, and I guess Red-Green Chopper if you want to be like super hinge off meta. But yeah, it's a blocker, and then there is no substitute for it in the Zoro deck, the current Zoo Animal Zoro deck. But other than that, and again with Red Green Chopper, you don't really see them in any other decks. But it's a Chopper card, so yeah, it's nice to have, right? Especially as a manga rare. Up next is Otama. It's a 1-cost 2k counter. So this card, way back when there were not as many card choices available, this was like the de facto 2k counter that every red deck ran. Because for 1 Dawn, you give minus 2k to something that's great utility, minus 2k to something helps you kill whatever it is on board, and then if you don't need a user for that offensive play, you just have it in hand as a defensive 2k counter. These days though, it's really more of like a filler 2k counter, right? For decks that of a particular archetype that just so happens not to have 12 to 14 2k counters in that archetype, you just fill it with Otama. There are some decks that she is a must-have in, right? She's non-negotiable in Red Blue Marco because his deck is all about power down and then killing stuff with reduced power. I believe Otama is also used in Shanks in OP09 for the same reason. Other than that, she was used heavily in Zoro when it was more of the 1-cost weenie kind of playstyle, but at the moment it's more animal package. Oh, Red Green Law, right? Red Green Law utilizes Otama to great effect because you can always bounce her back to hand after giving the minus 2k to something. But yeah, it's a great flexible card to have whenever they release future red leaders and they don't have a full like arsenal of 2k counters tailor-made for that archetype. Otama is like your go-to fill in the 2k counter slot card. Up next is Manga Nami. So this is the manga rare of this set. So you can either get it as a God Pack, and I think you can even get it as a standalone manga rare. Correct me if I'm wrong. I might be wrong on that, but I know for sure she comes in the God Pack. But yeah, it's just a searcher for the Straw Hat archetype. Believe at the moment the only viable deck that uses this searcher Nami is Red Purple Luffy. This Nami can search all the choppers in a Zoro deck, so this will be used in a Zoro deck as well. Also a staple card in Red Green Law. And yeah, just any deck that you run red Straw Hats, this Nami is an auto include as well. And if you have 4 of these, you're really ballin'. But there's other variants of this card, so if you don't have it, you can always buy like the other cheaper alternatives of this. So this OP01 Luffy, it's the art on the booster pack itself. He is not great. I don't think he's used in any deck at all. So unfortunately, they gave like the premier art to one of the least used cards in the set. Radical Beam is these days more of a filler card as well. Right, I think Shanks doesn't even use it in OP09 anymore, and then I believe the only deck at the moment that runs it is Red Purple Luffy. It's a 1 Dawn event counter that can counter for 4k when you're low on life. Way back when stats were like way more important and things just didn't outright remove stuff on board. Yeah, being able to counter 4k with 1 Dawn really turns the tides in battles. You're able to protect your characters really well, but yeah, just in the current climate, decks that did utilize this card the best aren't at the top of the meta at the moment. Right, Red has been relegated to like Turbo Aggro, or as like a secondary thing in a ramp deck with Red Purple Luffy. The other deck that used this card very ubiquitously was OPO2 Edward Newgate, but he's no longer meta. And yeah, Shanks doesn't even run it. I guess his leader ability is enough to deter attacks that you don't need this 4k counter on top of that. But I do think that this is kind of like an evergreen card, right? If there's a red deck that needs more defensive support and they don't have it built into their leader ability in the future, I'm assuming Radical Beam will be like your go-to card to add to the deck. So there'll be some value with Radical Beam. Now Izo, moving on to the green OP01 cards. Izo is also kind of like Otama, being the de facto filler green 2k counter. Because what Izo does for 3-Dawn is if you play him out, he rests a 4 cost on board. This is an incredibly strong effect. You can use it in various many ways. You can rest it to starve your opponent, or you could counter with the Izo, and he's searchable in a few decks, right? In Red Green Odin, in Perona, he's searchable. So Izo is always a good backup card to have in your collection. I should probably go a little quicker. There's a lot of cards to go through. Next up is Momonosuke. So yeah, this is the green searcher that can find the Izo you saw previously. The Wano package at the moment, I believe it's only run in Perona and potentially Yamato, green yellow Yamato. There's just so many variations of that Yamato deck that you don't need to run the Wano package. You can run the Sky Island package as well. But yeah, I don't think they're going to give up on green Wano, right? I think they're going to keep printing feature support at some point. So it would be great to have this searcher invested early for it. 5 cost Blocker Law. So this card is really only used in Red Green Law, and Red Green Law is no longer a meta deck. So if you like this card, it's probably just because it's a Law card. It's not in use at all nowadays. All right, 8 cost Eustace Captain Kid. So this card is used heavily in Bonnie, especially with the rise of Doflamingo at the moment, aggro blue Doflamingo. If you can get a 8 cost kid to stick and defend it, it stops Doflamingos in its track. So I do think the value of this card has gone up, and this card has always been like teetering on usability from the set he was released in, OP01 till now. And I do think green has enough tools now to like defend this guy really easily, right? You have 2 cost Blocker Rosinante to defend against KO effects when he's rested. Then you have a bunch of ways to counter, right? There's even a 1-Dawn 3k counter in green at the moment. And then there's leaders that can give you rested Dawn, or like ways to get extra Dawn to be used for this kid to activate his the first part of his ability, where if he's rested with the Dawn attached, they can't attack anything but this 8 cost kid, right? Yamato can put rested Dawn on him. There's a new smoker coming in OP10 that can do that too, right? You can untap 2 Dawn that you can attach to the kid. So in decks like those, you can get value out of this kid. You can set up the wall like 1 turn earlier. So I don't think this guy's ever going to go away. There's Raizo, 3 costs, and then when you attack, you draw a card. I don't think this card is used anymore, right? I don't think any decks run it, even in Wano decks. 9 cost Mihawk is more of a tech card, but blue decks have a pretty aggressive engine at the moment with the 4 cost 7 Warlord, so I don't really see this Mihawk used too much. He might be kind of a tech card in the Doflamingo mirror, right? Where you want to Mihawk your opponent's Jozu or something like that. And I guess with the rise of Buggy, right? Buggy has a card that just outright hard counters Doflamingo. This Mihawk can bottom deck that. He's really the only answer besides Red Rock against that Buggy card that shuts down a Doflamingo deck. So if you're planning to play Doflamingo, you might need this Mihawk actually. This Boa Hancock is not used even in the decks that she is supposed to be used in, right? There's better 4 cost Warlords, so Doflamingo doesn't run her, and then the Boa Hancock leader herself doesn't run her, so not too much value out of this card. 9 cost Shanks, no deck runs this card, so we can just skip over it. No deck has ran this card since OP01, right? OP01, the red Luffy deck ran it, and then after that, he just never showed up ever again. But he got a really nice alt art here. The OP01 Yamato, believe no decks run it. You can run it in a deck that plays like Rosinante, 8 cost Rosinante to cheat out a 5 cost, but other than that, there's better green Wano cards. And then if you can get Yamato to stick and then like land and attack, it is really punishing, right? Because you get double attack and banish, but it's just so easy to get rid of a 5 cost these days, right? The card needs to have like a strong on play or something, or activate main before they eventually end up dying anyway, usually to meet the like standard to be playable these days. So moving on to OP02, we have 9 cost Newgate. So at the moment, also only a card run in red purple Luffy. I think Shanks doesn't even run them. I'm trying to think of any other red decks. Some people like to run this in red blue Marco. I personally don't, but I guess yeah, if some people like it, it's something to consider. Because he makes your leader plus 2k base power for a whole turn until it gets back to you. So it's harder for your opponent to attack into. And yeah, he's a big body himself anyway. And then here's another manga rare, Manga Ace. So this Ace has Rush only in a Whitebeard Pirates type leader deck, which means it's red blue Marco or OP02 Newgate. You'll probably get more mileage out of him in a red blue Marco deck, who I think is kind of like teetering on viability. He just needs a little bit more of a kick to be a playable deck. Well, he is playable, but like a top meta deck. But yeah, this ace, I think even in that deck, this ace is only like a 2 of or something, so you won't get too much play out of manga ace. But I guess since you're only having a couple in your deck, if you have 2 manga aces, that'd be pretty cool, right? Then we have Makino, who is only used in the like old Zoro weenie list, but now that Zoro plays the animal package, I think Makino has been kind of cast away on the wayside. I think she is used in like Whitebeard, the O2 Whitebeard deck, just to buff the searcher you play on your first turn, but most of the time they keep the Makinos as 2Ks because they need it. So yeah, this card is kind of unplayable at the moment. Used to be one of the best cards, but not anymore. So 4-cost Blocker Marco, also used in Red Blue Marco, just a good defensive card that can revive itself when you're at 2 life. Also usable in the O2 Whitebeard deck, but other than that, these are the only 2 decks that run this card at the moment. But yeah, Red Blue Marco, again, teetering on the edge of being a meta deck. Hell's Judgment, I think it's a really strong card, but there's just no decks that utilize it too well, right? The fact that it can give minus 3k to 2 characters means you can stop 2 attacks. You can hit leaders too, by the way, not just characters. So at the price of leaving 2 Dawn up and then minusing a Dawn, which in these days, this current economy, purple decks don't really mind too much minusing Dawn. They have ways to like ramp and then keep up. And then I believe this is like a premier card in Purple Yellow Crocodile, because he has a leader ability that if you do minus Dawn on your opponent's turn, you can just get it back. But yeah, even though I think it's a strong card, I don't ever see this card run. So something to that effect is what I think of this card. 4-cost Kuzan, this card is run in meta decks. It's run in Black Yellow Luffy, it's run in Lucci, and it is also run in just a plethora of black decks. I do believe Smoker runs it too. So what he does is if you play him out, you draw a card, and then when you attack, you can give minus 4 cost to something. In a black deck, giving minus cost to something makes it that your other cards in the deck that KO have a easier time hitting higher costed characters. So the fact that he's a body that can also give minus 4 cost is a great thing to have, especially early on. If you play it on your second turn, if you're going second, you get a 5k attacker and you draw a card too, so he replaces himself. And minus 4 cost is a pretty big number, just in case you don't get the context of minus 4 over like minus 1 and minus 2. 6-cost Sakazuki from the same set. He is more of a tech card. Sometimes people run him, and it's only if you want to get rid of your opponent's like 5-drop and then you want to like consistently do it. You don't want to have to depend on having cost reduction to meet that threshold to KO it. Because what Sakazuki does is if you play him out, if you discard a card in your hand, you can KO one of your opponent's 5-cost or less characters. And he's a 7k too, so that's a great stat line to have, being able to attack 2k over 5k leaders. But yeah, it's a great tech option to have in your repertoire. Some decks will have you running it as a 1 or 2 of. I think at the moment, none of the top meta decks do run him, but he shows up every now and then. Sudo is a 2k counter 1 cost. So this card is run in every black deck. Similar to how Otama works, where it was 1 Dawn for minus 2k power, Sudo is 1 Dawn for minus 2 cost. So this helps you with meeting a lot of cost thresholds to KO stuff and interact with your opponent's board. And at the end of the day, if you don't need her for that, she's a 2k counter. And for 1 Dawn too, it's not too great of an investment at all to fit her into your turn. 4-cost Borsalino. So this guy is definitely a meta card. You're going to get a lot of value out of him. So he's a blocker for 4 costs, and then on your opponent's turn, he cannot be KO'd, and he also gets plus 1000 power. So he's a incredibly defensive card, right? Not only can he guard for 1k more than his stat line shows on his card, he also can't be like removed by your opponent. In general, there are cards that can send a card directly to the trash without technically KOing it, but those effects are very rare, right? You won't encounter them too much. And this is a card that you can bring out with your 8-cost Kakamoriya, which is a really meta card. So you'll get a lot of like defensive value out of this Borsalino, just by virtue of the fact that he's really hard to kill. So Ice Age is another staple for black. It's 1-cost event that can give minus 5 cost. So we mentioned that 4 cost earlier with the Kuzan is really good. 5 cost is even better, especially for 1 Dawn. You don't get a character out of it, but yeah, this minus 5 cost that you tag for a 1 Dawn investment lets you like kill pretty much anything, really. So yeah, this is a staple run in every black deck that is focused around killing stuff on your opponent's board. We have 10-cost Kuzan here. So this is a tech card, and I believe it's really only run in Black Yellow Luffy at the moment, even as like a 1 of or 2 of. But what he does is he's a 10 cost, and then if you play him out, he gets minus 5 cost to everything, and then you can KO a 0 cost on board. You just combine this guy with the Egghead Luffy, which KOs a 4 cost. With this Kuzan, it lets you KO like a 9 cost. But that's about it. He's kind of a staple card in Purple Black Zephyr, but that guy's like a fringe rogue deck at the moment. But yeah, with this Kuzan, it lets you KO at 8 cost with that Zed's leader ability whenever you attack. But you do have to like minus 4 Dawn or something. I forgot what he did exactly, but that's what this guy's used for mainly. Otherwise, he's not used in any other black deck. Right, moving on to OP03, we have Izo. So he's a 1-cost Whitebeard Pirates type searcher. Right, this is kind of like a theme in the One Piece card game. There's a lot of like 1-drop top 5 searchers for a specific like card type. So these cards are always used in the decks that run a lot of the archetypes of that card. So you'll be running Izo a lot, especially in a Red Blue Marco deck. You have Gum Gum Giant Gavel. It's a 1-Don event counter that counters for 4. This card is really only used in Nami. And Nami is like a self-milling deck. It's not a conventional deck, right? You win by making yourself lose all the cards in your deck. You don't win by attacking your opponent at 0 life. So if you want to get down that path and trying to learn an unconventional deck with the alternate win condition, you're going to need Giant Gavel. But other than that, this card isn't run in any other blue deck. Sanji's Peel-Off is also another card that's great in Nami, but it's also useful in some other blue decks. I do believe like Buggy can run it in OP09, and then Red Blue Marco runs it. It's just something to do on your early turns when you have nothing else to do. And then Buggy and Marco have ways to like get rid of this card in your hand, so it's not a dead card. Because there are times where you don't have the 3-Don to fit Sanji's Peel-Off to draw 2 cards for you. So it ends up being like a no counter card in hand that you can't get rid of. So yeah, if you're looking to build Nami or Marco or Buggy, this is a card for you. We have 3000 Worlds, so it's a 4-Don event that bottom decks a 5-cost or less on the board. This is an extremely tech card. A lot of blue decks don't run it at all, and if they do, it's probably like a 1-of. Because it's really specific, the situations that blue finds itself in where it has to bottom deck something, right? It's against stuff like Magellan, who can, if you kill it, you minus 2 Don, so you want to bottom deck it instead. I should explain bottom decking, right? So it may seem like bottom decking is worse than KOing something, because KOing something makes it go to the trash and they don't have access to it anymore, but there are a lot of decks that can access their trash, so bottom decking it with this card means that it goes to the bottom of their deck, hence bottom decking. And that just means effectively that you got rid of the card and they don't have access to it in their discard. Because you have like a 50 card deck, right? And then 5 cards for your life and then 5 cards for your hand. It's going to take like 40 cards to get to that card that you put on the bottom of the deck, so they're as good as like gone from the game. Unless you can really draw that many cards to see your bottom deck targets again. But yeah, at the moment, we don't see this card have too much play. We have 4-cost Khalifa too, so it's a 2k counter, and that's about it. It's useful in like an iceberg deck, but other than that, every other purple deck has better 2k counter options now. In the past, no, that's why Khalifa is run, but at the moment, yeah, Khalifa is no longer viable outside of an iceberg deck. There's also Virgo, another 2k counter. He's a Navy 2k counter. So he's flexible in that you can play him out, and then if you put down on him, he can't be KO'd in battle, right? He can only be KO'd by effects. But at the end of the day, it's a 2k counter that's searchable for the Navy archetype or the Don Quixote Pirates archetype. So it's great to have. Yeah, that's pretty much it. It's used in like Smoker, right? It's a Navy heavy black deck. But other than that, yeah, Virgo's not really the de facto choice for black 2k counters at the moment. And then we have brand new 2-cost Searcher. So it's a little bit more expensive than the 1-cost Searchers, but it only looks at the top 3 as well. But the caveat is that you discard the remaining 2. And yeah, this plays into decks that like to search from the discard, or interact with the discard, I mean. So you do want to discard those remaining 2 cards. And he lets you look at the top 3 for a Navy card. This is a staple in a bunch of decks that run even like a kind of half Navy package. You still want brand new, because even if you whiff on the top 3, if you discard all 3, they're probably cards that you wanted to put in your discard anyway. So he's great for that, for filling your discard for those kind of decks. Then we have 4-cost Air Door. This event cheats out a CP type card from the top 5 of your deck, but there's no deck that runs it, so you can just disregard it. 4-cost Cracker. So this Cracker, if you get him as a trigger from your life, you can discard a card from your hand and play him out for free. He is a really aggressive card, because if you have less life than your opponent and you attach Don to him, not only does he get plus 1k power, so he's 7k for 1 Don, but if he lands an attack, your opponent takes 2 life. This is for like the most aggressive of aggressive yellow decks. Katakuri used to run him, but not too much these days. But he's running red-yellow Bello Betty for now, until she gets better options, and even running green-yellow Arlong until he doesn't have really any other option. He does have to run Cracker, I think, at the moment. Then we have Charlotte Smoothie. So she's similar to Cracker with the same trigger, but what her card effect does is when attacking, you can add the top or bottom card of your life to your hand, so you're losing a life this way, and then she gets plus 2k power. She's not used at all, so we can just ignore her. Now Peros Pero though. 3-cost Peros Pero, same trigger as Smoothie and Cracker, but he's used in any deck that runs the Big Bomb Pirates package, because on death, he looks at the top 3 cards of your deck, and then you can search a Big Bomb Pirates type card from that and add it to your hand. So he's an attacking stat line, right? He's a vanilla 3-5, and he can also replace himself when he dies. And you can cheat him out when you get him as a trigger, so he's really great for a Katakuri and a Pudding deck. Shirahoshi is great in an Enel deck as a trigger, right? You draw 3 and discard 2 for free basically, and worst case scenario you have it as a 1k, but it's really only used in Enel, and I do believe it's used in like blue yellow ace because his deck revolves around 5 costs, and yeah, Shiroshi's a 5 cost. Thunderbolt is a tech card. I do think some Katakuri still run this, and then some Enels too, and then I think I've even seen like black yellow Luffy's run this card too, right? It just helps you get rid of something to go for game, and to get it as a trigger too is really great, right? Playing it from your hand for 2 Dawn, you have to trash a life to KO at 5 cost, but as a trigger, you get the KO part without the cost of losing a life. The Manga Sogeking is not used at all in any decks, unfortunately. 8 cost Katakuri is though. So 8 cost Katakuri is used in Enel, and it can be used in the Katakuri deck, but I think these days we don't see it as much. But it's definitely a staple in an Enel deck, and I also believe Purple Yellow Crocodile runs this card as well. I think Pudding may run this as well. So you'll get a little bit of mileage out of Katakuri, especially if you're playing Enel. It's a staple in an Enel deck. Dellinger is not played in any deck, so we'll skip. 10 cost Doflamingo. This card is at least a one of in every green deck that I've seen, besides like Uta. But at some point, Uta did run this card too, the film Uta deck. So what he does is on play, you can freeze 3 characters. Yeah, you're just able to stop your opponent from having a turn, basically. Because you can freeze a leader too, right? If you have 3 targets out, you're basically being able to develop a 10 cost without them being able to do anything about it back to you. And then from that point on, you have a 10 dropout to deal with their board. Yeah, staple in Bonnie, staple in pretty much every green deck, like Carrot would run this card too. And Baby 5 is just a 2k counter you can search if you're running the Don Quixote Pirates package. So if you're running that package, you'll probably be running this Baby 5 anyway. Don Quixote family event is not used, so just ignore it. So 10 drop Kaido from OP04. This one bounces an 8 cost and a 3 cost back to hand on play. Do believe he's only used in a Boa deck, because Boa, when she has 5 or less cards in hand, and then you remove a character from play, so that's KO or bottom deck or trash or bounce, you do draw a card, so this card is like her top end. But other than Boa, I don't think this Kaido is used much. It might be used in like a VV deck. I'm not too sure, I don't play VV too much, but for sure Boa Hancock. Gum Gum Red Rock is a purely tech card. I think at the moment, blue decks are opting not to run this, or Doflamingo at least. I think Boa may still run it, but what it does is for 6 Dawn, you can just bottom deck any character, no matter what cost. So yeah, it's a 6 Dawn, kill something on board, essentially. So when the meta is more favored towards like big characters and not a wide board, Red Rock is perfect for that. But at the moment, there's a lot of decks that can cheat out like 2 characters a turn, so you won't get too much value out of Red Rock at the moment. Manga Sabo is probably one of the most playable manga rares, because this Sabo is run in every black deck. He is a blocker, and on top of that, if you play him out, all your characters on board cannot be KO'd by KO effects, which is really strong at keeping your board to be able to be used the turn after. And on top of that, he has a third effect. You can draw 2 cards and discard 2 cards. That cycles out 2 cards in your hand, gets rid of dead cards, and fills it with better cards. But yeah, like pretty much every black deck, Lucci, Smoker, or even starter deck 14 Luffy, they run Sabo in some capacity. Bartolomeo, the 2k counter blocker. So yeah, he's flexible in that he's a 2k and a blocker, and he's only 3 costs, so he's really cheap to play out. But despite that, I don't see him used in any deck that's not a Dressrosa deck. But there is like a blue, black Usopp deck coming out soon in OP10, so you could see play in there. But other than that, he's not like the priority black 2k counter. 1 cost barrier, this card is not used, so I'll skip it. Now Badge is used. Badge is one of the most annoying triggers you can get in yellow, because yeah, besides being a 2k counter, which makes him like useful already, if you trigger him out, one of your opponent's characters or leaders can't attack for this turn. So if your opponent planned a certain combination of strings to attack you with to finish you off, if you get a Badge trigger, it throws a wrench in their plan. They don't have lethal anymore. I'm pretty sure every yellow deck that can run this does run it, especially decks like Enel. Enel needs cards like Badge. 4 cost blocker Sanji. So he has a trigger similar to Perospero and Cracker and Smoothie, where you discard a card, you play him out, and he has blocker, so he can save you if you get him as a trigger when your opponent's trying to kill you. Now they have to account for 1 more attack to go through your blocker. But despite that, I don't see him too much in yellow decks these days. He's not running Enel, he's not running Katakuri, so not really sure what home he has. Maybe he's running Pudding, but I don't even see him in Pudding decks too much either. Up next we have 9 cost Yamato. So this Yamato is used in quite a few yellow decks. They're used in Enel for sure, right? Because when you're at 1 life or less, you heal 1 when you play this Yamato, and on top of that, you can KO something on board with cost totaling you and your opponent's life added together. So both a KO effect and a heal, but when you're low on life, it's mainly just for the heal, because you won't have enough life total to KO anything significant. But yeah, Yamato is great at just like prolonging your life in the late game. For yellow decks, I don't have like a premier way to heal. with like 10 cost Big Mom or something like that. Koala is a 2k counter in the Revolutionary Army archetype, which is only playable in the Rev Army deck, so that's only Bello Betty, and there's a red-yellow Sabo at the moment as well. And Dragon too, there's a Dragon, OP08 Dragon. But other than that, there's OP07. But yeah, other than that, this Koala, it's just the de facto Rev Army 2k counter if you run the Rev Army package. 6 cost Sabo, this card is not run in any deck, so he kind of sucks. This Nico Robin is as a very niche tech option and only in decks like Red Purple Luffy at the moment, because it just helps you kill cards like Rebecca, who is a 0 power blocker that a lot of black decks like to run. This is just a 1-down answer to it because it KOs a character with 1000 power or less. Bello Betty is the de facto searcher for the Rev Army type. I'm using the word de facto a lot in this video. I didn't even know I knew this word, but yeah. If you're running Rev Army package, you're running Bello Betty, which is only like a Bello Betty deck at the moment, because the red-yellow Sabo deck doesn't focus on the Rev Army package, but the Bello Betty deck does. Say Bello Betty 10 times fast. I'm not gonna, my lips hurt. Okay, up next we have Baby 5. So this is the Don Quixote Pirates tap searcher, similar to the Momonosuke we saw earlier. And yeah, Bonnie runs this card, and I think Carrot even runs it if they run the hybrid Don Quixote Pirates plus Minx package. So it's a staple card for sure at the moment. As long as 10 cost Doflamingo is going to be strong, this card will be used. Then we have this 4 cost Ulti who can search any card from the top 3, but it's not used really. So even though the effect sounds strong, no decks really use it. Maybe because it's a blue card, that's probably it, but yeah. Up next we have Hound Blaze. It's a 2 cost event that lets you bottom deck a 2 cost and then buffs a character or leader for 3k. This used to be a menace back in the day because you would combine it with black in a blue-black deck. So you have the power of cost reduction plus the power of this being able to bottom deck something and make something an attacker. But these days there aren't any good blue-black leaders, right? There's Rebecca, who is probably your best bet if you want to use this card. But other than that, you won't get too much mileage out of this card at the moment until they release a good blue-black leader in the future. So you could invest in this card for a future meta, I guess. So Manga Law is the one that when you attack, you look at the top 5 cards of your deck and you draw a Heart Pirates type card, but only if you have less down than your opponent. This is one of the least usable cards, and the deck that he used to be run in, Red Purple Law, he got banned, so probably one of the lowest value manga rares, to be honest, in terms of usability. But as a manga rare itself, since it's a law card, it's price-wise pretty high. Up next is Miss Doublefinger. It's just a 2k counter option in the Baroque Works type. That's about it. But I guess in a purple-yellow crocodile deck, it's nice having a trigger body that you could play out too, if you want to go for lethal. But her being a 4k means you need to attach additional Dawn to make her able to attack. Now Manga Kid, who also has a non-manga version in the same set, FYI. So I'm a little divided on this card. There's decks that do need them. I think Red Purple Kid needs them. Zed probably needs them. Purple Black Zed. But I don't think Purple Luffy needs this guy anymore. At least I don't run him in my deck. I guess if you're running Foxy, you do need Kid. So yeah, I guess in every purple deck that's not Luffy or Reiju, you would run this Kid. Because he's a blocker, and then whenever you minus Dawn, you get 1 active back. So it helps you recover from having to minus Dawn to play some of your strong purple effects. At the end of the day, he's a blocker too. Up next we have One-Legged Toy Soldier. It's a 2k counter, and then what makes him interesting is that as an activate main effect, if you trash it, you get -3 cost or something. That's pretty strong for 2 cost. But yeah, most of the time you want a minus cost effect to be an on-play, because there's a card called Gekkomoria that lets you chain a couple on-plays together, so you want that cost reduction to combo with a KO effect. One-Legged Toy Soldier is kind of awkward in the fact that you have to use the activate main after you play him out, so you can't like time it together well with other on-plays. But in decks that can't utilize on-plays, which is coming in OP09, the Blackbeard deck, you could use One-Legged Toy Soldier. And I'm pretty sure he's going to be used in the Dressrosa decks too, just as a 2k counter option, even if at that. We have a Shirahoshi card, and I don't think I know what it does, because I've never used this card, so it's probably not a great card. Let me read it real quick. Yeah, this card is never used, so don't worry about it. Okay, up next we have Satori, one of the flexible 2k counters in yellow. So he's a 5 cost 5k attacker, so you can attack, and then he's a 2k counter, so you can use him defensively, and he can trigger out by trashing a card in your hand to play him out for free. So he fulfills a little bit of everything that you want to do in yellow. I would say this is like the yellow equivalent of Otama and Izo, right? It's just a 2k counter where you don't have any other great yellow 2k counter to put in your deck. El Thor is a 1-Dawn event that can counter for 4k if your opponent has 2 or less life cards. I do believe it's used in like Vegapunk, and then I don't see it used in Enel anymore, but it used to be, and it's also used in Kagura, which hasn't gotten any support in a couple sets, so Kagura might be like a dead deck. But yeah, it's It's still great, right? 1 Dawn to counter for 4. There's just no yellow decks that at the moment needs a 4k counter, because they have other ways to like heal and then stay alive. 200 million volts Amaru, so this is a 2 Dawn like finisher card that some yellow decks run as like a 2 of. So as an effect on main, you can give a leader or character plus 3000 power, and then if you have 1 or less life cards, you can rest up to one of your opponent's 4 cost or less characters. So yeah, this gets like rid of one of your opponent's blockers, and then you buff yourself for 3k, and then you just go for game at that point. But the trigger is also great too. If you charge 2 cards from your hand, you can heal 1 card from your deck to the top of your life. So it's multifaceted. You can use it aggressively and defensively. But again, it's a tech card. Decks used to run this as a 4 of, but at the moment it's like a 2 of at most. And it's only like aggressive decks like Katakuri that run it. We have 1 cost Upper Yard. It's a stage card that's only used in a Kalgara deck. So if you're not running Kalgara, don't worry about it. But if you're running Kalgara, you'll need 4 of these. Oh, the other 10 cost Kaidos in this set too. So the OPO5 one lets you draw 4 cards if your opponent has 3 or less life cards if you play them out. It's a tech card in Doflamingo and Boa Hancock, or any blue leader actually. You can run this card as a top end to just draw you a bunch of cards. But it's only for like a control style of blue deck. And yeah, in the Doflamingo mirror, when you want to outvalue your opponent and just have 3 cards over them. But other than that, yeah, I don't see this Kaido too prevalent at the moment. So this Manga Luffy also has a non-manga variant in the same set. He's really only used for red purple Luffy at the moment, and then he will be used in purple black Luffy. He's not used in mono purple Luffy, and then I don't think any other purple deck runs him. Because what he does is for 10 Dawn, and if you play him out, if you minus 10 Dawn, you have to bottom deck all your other characters on board, and then you just take an extra turn after this one. So yeah, having to minus all your Dawn is really like devastating, but he does have a activate main ability where if you pay a Dawn, you ramp 1 active Dawn, so it does help you recover it back a bit. But you mainly use this guy as a finisher, right? You attack with everything on board and you play this guy and then you get a second turn to attack again. You want to be able to finish with this card on your extra turn. That's the only time you play this guy out in general. I guess you could play him out early if you want a big character out, but then you just have to like recover all your Dawn. But yeah, I can only think of 2 decks that use it, so there's that. But yeah, it's a Luffy card. This is the most expensive manga rare too, if you happen to get it. Up next is Ivankov, and this Ivankov is only run in a Bella Verde deck because it's only Rev Army locked, and it's a staple, so I'm not going to go over what the card does. If you're running Bella Verde, you have to run this guy. Next up, we have 4 cost Arlong. I don't think any decks run this besides like green yellow Arlong, so there's that. Up next is 7 cost Hoodie Jones. Okay, this guy's run in like a lot of green decks because what he does is he has Rush for 7, so that's great on its own, and then you can rest up to 2 of your opponent's characters or Dawn. So if they left Dawn up to like say for an event, you can just get rid of it, or if it's like a enemy Bonnie who needs Dawn to activate her leader ability on the opponent's turn, you deny it with this card. You do have to take a card from your life to your hand afterwards though, but if you're at 0 life, this is like a great finisher. And then if you want to take cards to your hand just to be able to like have more counter or something, Hodie's a great play for that. But yeah, Hodie's used in like Carrots, used in Bonnie. What other decks? Green yellow Arlong for sure, pretty much most green decks. We have 4 cost Ryuma, who's only used in Perona at the moment, I think. Yeah, he's a 4 cost Wano type card, and then on play or on KO, you can KO one of your opponent's rested 4 cost or less. So in a Perona deck, you can play him out multiple times with Gecko Moria. But yeah, he's just great that even if you play him out, he kills something, and then if he happens to die, he kills something. So he's like doubly faceted in that way. The Billion-Fold World Trichiliocosm. Did I say that right? I don't know. These event names are like ridiculous. But yeah, this is the 1 Dawn 3k counter in green. Even though that sounds great, I don't see this card used, so maybe not too great of a card actually. And then we have Ama no Murakumo Sword. So this is an event that lets you bottom deck 1 and a 2 costs, but only really potent in a deck that can also include cost reduction. So in a blue-black deck, but there's no good blue-black leaders at the moment. So this is similar to Hound Blaze. It's investment for the future if there's a good blue-black leader in the future. So Vinsmoke Ichiji only used in a Reiju deck, blue-purple Reiju deck. So if you're running that leader, you'll need this. Same with Niji here, which is, what's his final art? This one. Yeah, basically everything you see here that says Vinsmoke is used in Reiju deck. So we have Niji, Yonji, and then Reiju here, and then the stage card too. Well, they give you like basically the entire Reiju deck in the premium booster. Oh, they also include 8 cost Gecko Moria. This guy is like the meta card, and it's what is making black like the top of the meta at the moment. So he's a 8 drop that lets you cheat out a 4 cost and a 2 cost from your trash, 1 active and 1 rested. So you're getting 3 bodies for 8 Dawn, and then a lot of those bodies have strong on plays that get you more value too. So it's a staple for sure. Every black deck runs this card. Sindri is only used in a Gecko Moria deck, the Gecko Moria leader, and he's not doing too hot at the moment, so there's that. Inu Arashi is not used in any deck. Hiyori is a flexible yellow 2k counter option. especially in decks that like to manipulate life, because what she does is you can add the top or bottom card of your life to your hand, and then you can put a card in your hand back to replace it. So you can set up a trigger this way. So if you're running a yellow deck that does care about that, like blue-yellow Ace or red-yellow Sabo or black-yellow Luffy or even like Yamato, you will run Hiyori. Nekomamushi is not run in any deck, at least I don't think so. There's probably some fringe yellow Wano deck that does run it, but yeah, out of like the yellow Wano cards, this is probably one of the better ones to include in your deck over like Arashi and stuff like that. This Wyper is only running Kalgara, so if you're not building Kalgara, you don't need to worry about him. So Manga Zoro is I believe it's now a tech card. It's not as stable as it used to be, right? It's a card used in Bonnie, and I think Lim, the green purple Lim in 09, ramps to Zoro pretty easily. And yeah, he's able to attack 3 times. That's what makes him so good. He's able to bust down a bunch of walls that your opponent sets up. But these days, he might be a little too slow, right? Green can't keep up with Doflamingo if you spend a turn playing the Zoro who doesn't do anything to the board state on the turn you play him. Okay, we're on to promo cards. We're almost done. So Kobe, nobody uses this. Barto, I guess you can run it in Uta, green Uta, film Uta, but she has way more better options now, so this card is probably not going to be used. This Nami, where did I see her? I saw some deck run it as a 2k counter. Was it Reiju? But if you guys know in the comments, let me know. I'm not going to research it for that one deck that this card is used as like a flexible tech option for. This Luffy is not used at all. This Sanji is a new leader, and he's kind of meh. He could get better as more like non-on-play red cards get released, so it's an investment into the future, I guess. But you get this in your box for free anyway. Oh, but I should show the alt art. So yeah, it's nice to have the leader, just in case there are good red cards that can be used with his leader ability in the future. This Chopper is only used in red-green Law. That's about it. That's all I can think of. Guard Point. Since you have Radical Beam, most decks just run Radical Beam over Guard Point, and it's only like the OPO2 Newgate Whitebeard deck that needs both Radical Beam and Guard Point, but other than that, every other deck is fine with just Radical Beam. This badge is only used in red-green Law, and I guess I've seen some Bonnies run it, so you could use it in a Bonnie deck too, but it's just one cost blocker. This Mihawk is used in blue Doflamingo, and probably Boa as a 2k counter option, but in Doflamingo as a body to play out, and he's a top meta deck, so you'll need this guy. This Blocker Law is a tech option in Doflamingo, I guess, but I don't see too many run him. That's about it. This Boa is a blocker that you can trigger out for free. It's mainly used in Blue-Yellow Queen. That's all I can think of. No other decks run it. You just want this as like a card that stops your opponent from killing you so that you can heal the turn after, right? Because you just trigger it out, block an attack. 9-cost Kaido, I do think he's only used in purple Luffy at the moment. He can be used in purple black Luffy, but I don't see them run it. Because there's a new 9-cost Luffy that kind of overshadows this Kaido, but I have a soft spot for this Kaido because not only does he have Rush, similar to the 9-cost Luffy, but this Kaido can kill something else on board, a 6-cost or less, but you'd have to Dawn -5, so that's pretty steep. That's why the other Luffy's kind of more preferred, because you don't have to Dawn -5, you still have 10 Dawn to work with the turn after. But at the moment, since I'm guessing if you're watching this on the day that Premium Booster released, or around that time, OPO9 is not out yet, so we only have access to 9-cost Kaido for purple Luffy. And Queen was an expensive card, but now it's like dirt cheap because Queen is included in the set, so it's a very high priority purple target to put in your deck. I don't think it's a auto include anymore, but what Queen does is on play you can Dawn -1 and then draw 2, discard 1, and it's a 6k blocker at the end of the day, so you're +1 in card advantage, and you're even getting to cycle because you get to pick what you discard from your hand, and then yeah, you just have an attacker and a blocker out. Used in purple Luffy, I don't think purple black Luffy runs them anymore. But yeah, if you have any other like old purple deck that doesn't have enough cards to support it, like if it's like an abandoned archetype, you just slap in a Queen. We have Blast Breath, which is only used in a purple yellow crocodile deck because of the Dawn -1 part of the counter effect. But yeah, it counters for 4k. Hamepo is used in a lot of black decks in that on play he gets -3 cost or something, and then he is 2 costs, so he can be used for that second portion of that 8 cost Kakomori's effect for that combo. Right, so he's a -3 cost reduction plus the 4-drop that you're going to play that KO something. He's good for that combo. He's used as like a 2 of at most in any deck that has like a navy supplementary package to it. Shockwave, no one runs this anymore, so don't worry about it. Brule is just a yellow version of that Boa we saw earlier, so Queen can run it being a blue-yellow deck, and then I guess you can run it in Katakuri or Pudding, just as like a failsafe, but I don't see this card used in those decks too much these days. Now the Kabura Arrow is a 1 Dawn 3k minus counter event. It's kind of effectively like a +3k if you're giving -3k to something. But yeah, this card isn't used these days anymore either. They've got 4-cost Blocker Law too, so this card is used. It's used in purple Luffy. It can be used in red purple Luffy too, just any purple deck, because he's great in that, yeah, he's a 4-cost blocker for 5k too, so you can use it as an attacker too, and then what makes it especially potent and kind of warps the matchup against purple decks is that on play, if you draw -1, if your opponent has 7 or more cards in their hand, you make them discard 2 at random. That makes it so that if your opponent plays against any purple deck and then they suspect that you run this card, they have to be careful with how many cards they keep in hand. So you do force them to counter out of attacks that they normally wouldn't counter out of. Lastly, we have Duval, who is a blocker, and on play you can rearrange the top 3 of your deck. I think he's only running like a blue, green, Zoro, and Sanji deck, but that deck is like trash, so nobody runs this card really. And okay, yeah, we got through it all. Nice. So that is Premium Booster 1, every card. I hope that gave you insights on some of the cards that you got in your boxes or your booster packs that you bought. I hope it gave you enough of a hint to like let you know what else to search up next to build out your deck or how to use some of these cards. Yeah, this is gonna be a long video. But yeah, let me know if this helped. Let me know if you like this kind of video so I know what kind of videos to make in the future. And yeah, if you're a new player, welcome to the game, by the way. I guess I should say this in the beginning, but I'm only remembering it now at the end when I'm really tired and my lips hurt. But yeah, if you want to like find out how to build some of these decks that I mentioned, I probably have like a deck breakdown somewhere on my channel, so you can look up how to play and build some of these decks that I mentioned. I even have like sample like gameplay footage too, so you know how they like play in action. Yeah, subscribe to my channel if you're not already subscribed. I got a lot more One Piece content on the way. I have been for the last like 2 years, so yeah. You can check out my past catalog too, I guess. Hopefully you like me as a person too. That's what's gonna get you to subscribe. But yeah, that's it for this video before I ramble on too much longer. Thanks for watching. Bye. Oh, let me know what you guys pulled too in the comments below. Or in my Discord server too, right? Whenever a new set releases, we like to share what we pull with each other. Quick plug. Okay, bye.
Card D Kaizoku.